Hi there, it's Nicole Spohr for Spellbinders, and today I'm sharing two die cut cards featuring the small die of the month called Hello and Thank You. And these both have amazing dies that have lots of florals, and then the die cut sentiments that really work for a lot of cards. You can use them with the florals from this kit or on their own. So really useful, fantastic sentiments this month. We're also going to be using some Fun Stampers Journey embossing folders for the background to give us some texture without taking away from the overall design. I've already gone ahead and embossed the barn wall embossing folder on Hazelnut Blend Fun Stampers Journey cardstock that was trimmed to 4 by 5 1/4 inches first, and then I'm going to assemble the florals. So for the first one, we're going to do a hello card, and it's going to have green and gold for that kind of diamond shaped floral frame. This one has a lot more greenery to it, a lot more foliage than the other one. I did my die cutting off camera to save some time, and this little bit of layering you would not have to do. I chose to add that little bit of layering so I'd have some gold peeking from behind. Because it's a little hard to get that liquid adhesive to stick to the gold mirror or any kind of mirror cardstock, I worked nice and slow, and then I put acrylic blocks on top to kind of help hold it flat. And then I found it worked best to lay out my frame where I want it to go on the background so I make sure and get my spacing correct. And then I'm going to piece it together. So for each of these frames, you're going to need to die cut it twice and then piece it together to make the complete frame. There is our first one all ready to go. Also off camera, I did die cut all of the florals, and I'm going to piece those together right now. This is some Haystack cardstock with the gold mirror for the accent. And I'm adding little dabs of glue and then using an embellishment wand to pick those up really quickly and easily and pop those in place for all of the great layered design. Same thing with these little buds. This is the Buttercream Fun Stampers Journey cardstock with the gold mirror cardstock for the accent. The remaining florals for my card were die cut from Cranberry Bliss, and then the pumpkin color of cardstock. The name of it is eluding me at the moment. And so very fall themed colors. I wanted to mention that because I went with a lot of autumnal type of colors for my cards today, just to show the versatility. You can do these in any color you want to. Then I opted to go ahead and go around and do the entire frame first. So I'm adding the yellow and the cream colored flowers, and I found it easiest to start in one spot and work my way around. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It really kind of shows the stems where these go for this particular frame, and then there's like these little two-leaf areas which work really great for the little buds. You could also choose to put the other little blooms there if you wanted to. It's really whatever you want to do, whatever you prefer here. You could also completely mix and match the colors. I opted to do kind of consistent with my frame, and this is quite a lot of die cutting, but it really makes a big impact. I think these would be beautiful if you wanted to do a whole set of cards and do a whole bunch of thank yous maybe. I want to mention this is going to be the hello card, but you could just as easily switch that out and make this the thank you card. We have just a few more of these yellow and white blooms. When I attach the frame, I only put adhesive around the actual frame itself, not the foliage. So if there's anywhere that needs a little extra securing now, I'm adding in some liquid adhesive with a fine tip applicator. Next, we're going to go ahead and grab our sentiments. I've also die cut those from both Cranberry Bliss Fun Stampers Journey cardstock and the gold mirror cardstock, and we're going to layer the red on top of the gold so that it just has a tiny hint of a shadow to really help it stand out and give it that bold presence that I wanted for a die cut sentiment. I'm going to go ahead and assemble all these first. Again, so the glue dries and I don't have to worry about it shifting on the mirror cardstock, because that's such a slick surface that they can kind of move around a little bit. I put the acrylic block on those to kind of help hold them down in place until I was ready to add them to my card. And I have a little tip for helping get these lined up on your cards so that they are perfectly straight. I love a T-square ruler. Any kind of ruler will work here, but the T-square works especially nice because it's so secure where it butts up next to the card and then it's straight across. It also shows you where the center of your card is so that you can perfectly center your sentiment. I like to start with the middle letter for the sentiment and then work my way out to the right and the left. And this way I am able to easily line those letters up. And I'm going to keep taking something heavy. I know I keep saying I'm using acrylic blocks. I have those handy. They're nice and heavy. So that's what I like to use, but you could use anything here as long as it's heavy and flat and will help hold everything down. And I'm going to build my sentiment. We're going to do all the die cutting and assembly first for both cards, and then we'll come back at the end and glimmer the strips that we're going to use with this, because that's an additional product that doesn't come in the small die of the month, kind of like the embossing folders I'm using. They add some interest. You could totally just use a flat piece of cardstock as well if you don't have embossing folders. I also think a subtle stamped background would be beautiful with these designs. Just gives it a little something that helps draw your eye into the beautiful florals and then the big die cut sentiment. So once we have our sentiment all down in place, we have these little florals and then some little leaves that I've die cut from gold. For the florals, we're going to take the stylus tip for our two-in-one and round those out so that the petals kind of curl up a little bit. And then we're going to just start assembling those on our wreath. And those really can go anywhere. I've already really filled in all of the natural places for flowers to go. So now I'm just kind of adding these in all around and adding a lot of them because they add a beautiful pop of color. We have a lot of neutrals going on, and now I'm ready to pull in more color that coordinates back to our die cut hello. And a little bit of gold leaves. I really felt like there was already a lot of greenery with the foliage that goes around this shape here, the diamond shape. So I opted to do those in gold instead because it picks up the gold from the shadow in the sentiment, the gold from the flowers, the layering on the flowers back behind the foliage, and then it's going to tie in to the glimmering because we're going to glimmer gold foil with our additional phrases to finish off the sentiment. And I'm working my way around this frame as well. I found it easiest to use a little pair of tweezers to hold those little teeny tiny pieces and put them where I wanted them to go, and then pop the flower right there on top. We're going to take Nuvo crystal drops in bright gold and add that to the center of the flowers. That also ties back to the gold theme. And we'll set this aside. We'll let all of that, the liquid adhesive and the Nuvo drops, completely dry while we assemble our second card. There's what it looks like. And next we have the Pretty Plaid embossing folder. I just wanted to show how a different embossing folder looked. We're also using some Denim Days cardstock instead of the Hazelnut blend, the brown, to just show how much the colors pop on this as well. I love a beautiful denim with autumn colors. I think that's pretty. And then you can see that this frame goes together just like the last one. It just has a little less foliage. It's a little bit more simple in design, but no less beautiful. Again, it is from our die cut twice, from Fresh Forest and Gold Mirror cardstock, and then assembled to create that little bit of a shadow effect before we take it over to our background and assemble it over the embossing there from the Pretty Plaid. I'm going to kind of lay it out first, make sure I like where it goes, and then glue it down, and keeping the glue really just behind the little straight area and not underneath all of the petals. That way, if I do want to tuck anything underneath, I will be able to do that a little bit easier. And you can see I don't think I got it lined up, and I had to move it a little bit, but luckily I think we're going to be able to disguise that. This is going to have a little bit less florals as far as all the way around the shape. We're going to concentrate our little groupings or floral clusters at the top, bottom, and then both sides. And I did die cut my sentiment from 2 colors of cardstock. We're using red and orange here, and also the gold mirror, and we're going to do the same thing we did for the first card, where we have a little bit of a gold shadow back behind our sentiments, which ties in nicely to all the little gold foil touches as far as back behind the greenery, the little teeny tiny leaves, the accent pieces on our flowers. I did all my flowers just like the first card, so I'm going to do those off camera to save some time as far as the assembly, where we're layering the little gold foil pieces on the larger colorful die cut pieces. I just die cut a bunch of all of these flowers all at once. I'm holding them in these great little trays here. I will link to those trays in my supply list if you are interested in picking some up, because they are fantastic for holding your little die cut pieces while you are working and assembling your card designs. I'm going to use that T-square ruler like I did before to help line up the thank you. I want to lay out my glimmer plate so I have an idea of where I want to start my sentiment, and then I can move that out of the way and start gluing down my letters. This really worked well for making sure that none of my letters, because there are so many individual letters, the word thank is all one, but then the word you obviously is all separate letters, and we're using the O from hello. I love that you can do both of those. Another option is you could also spell hey, H-E-Y, if you want to do something completely different than the hello or the thank you. But I put down the word you first, and then we're just going to pop thank right above that. That still leaves plenty of room down below for our glimmered sentiment strip. And now we can assemble and put the flowers in place. As I mentioned, I did assemble them, but I'm going to go ahead and glue those down on camera so you can see the flower groupings. And I'm definitely doing a lot more. So each section is going to have different assortments. The top and the bottom is going to have 3 of the white or buttercream ivory blooms each, a yellow flower, and then 2 little flowers, a red and an orange. And then the sides are each going to have a yellow flower, a white bloom, and a red and an orange flower. Just kind of give a nice assortment. You can do whatever you want here. You could even add flowers all the way around. That would be beautiful as well. I just did a little bit more of a minimalistic look than the last one because that had a lot going on, and this is a little bit more simple foliage. We will add all of these little flowers, and then just like before, we're going to take the Nuvo crystal drops in bright gold and add those to the flower centers and let those completely dry. That ties in nicely to the rest of the gold. You could use little teeny tiny jewels would be pretty, or anything like that, or just leave them as is. They have some nice little die cut dot detail in the center of these little flowers. I really, really like the shape of these little flowers. Spellbinders always does such a fantastic job with their florals, and these are some really good ones. A great addition to our collections of die cut flowers. I can't stress enough that with die cutting, especially all these little parts and pieces, having tools to help hold on to them and put them where you want them to go, like some craft tweezers, an embellishment wand, and definitely the tool-in-one, come in so handy because it allows you to keep your fingers out of liquid glue and place things right where they want to go. My tweezers were truly my best friend when assembling these because I was able to pick them up with the tweezers, put a little glue on it, and then tuck them into place so it went right where I wanted. And then that stylus tip on the tool-in-one gives those small blooms a nice little bit of shape before you put them down. And then of course the Nuvo crystal drops that I already mentioned. Now we want to start heating up our Glimmer hot foil system so that we can glimmer our sentiments. I opted to save this to the end so that I could do both sentiments at once. I knew I was going to use a couple phrases, so we're going to grab a More Sentiments Glimmer set from Spellbinders, and we're taking the You're in My Thoughts and Grateful for All You Do and glimmering these on the Haystack Fun Stampers Journey cardstock with gold foil. And I'm going to do them both at once. Since I already know that I'm going to do the same thing, these are really similar designed cards, just different sentiments. We're going to glimmer those. If there's any over foiling, which I think there was a little bit around the letters, I very, very gently took a sand eraser and erased away that excess foiling. And then we're going to take the coordinating die that comes in the More Sentiments Glimmer set and die cut these into strips. And the die is much longer than what I foiled. So I'm going to line it up with one side and run it through the die cutting machine. Do keep in mind if you're using some low tack tape like I used, don't put it over the foil because it can lift that away. And then I'll flip that die around and run it through the other way to shorten up that strip. I've backed both strips with foam adhesive, and then I'm placing them on my card bases. That little glimmered strip pops up, but look how beautiful that looks and how it finishes off each card design perfectly. And again, I'm using my tweezers to kind of help hold on to that and pop it into place so that I can keep my fingers out of that foam. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for these two die cut hello and thank you cards featuring the Spellbinders small die of the month for September 2020 called Hello and Thank You. The supplies I used to create my cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Spellbinders products that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new card making video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll catch you next time.